Hey dudes, and welcome back to The Bants. As always, I am your host, The Bants. And seeing as how in the last couple weeks I've been a little bit slacking on updating videos, expect to see what's happening in fashion now on Wednesdays as well, and so 3 times a week for the foreseeable future. And with that said, let's just get right into it. And first up, we have our headlines for the day. And for our first headline, we finally know where Kim Jones is going to end up. And fortunately, it's not Versace. Instead, and honestly, I think this is for the better, where he ended up is actually what he's going to be doing instead is that he's going to be reissuing some of his older pieces with the help of a Japanese retailer that has ties to Uniqlo. So basically, what does that mean? It means that we're going to see a lot of his older pieces, his nicer pieces, his more renowned pieces, and hopefully we'll see them at a more affordable price point. So overall, as far as any situation could have gone with Kim Jones, I personally see this as a win-win. And then in our second headline, brand Moncler just announced their new, what they're calling their Genius line, featuring a proverbial slew of fashion designers from pretty much all over the industry, and we'll get more into them in just a second. But basically what this line represents is it's taking over the Rouge and the Blue line, the latter being designed originally by Tom Brown, which just closed down last year. And they actually just showed off some of the pieces from some of these new lines, and well, let's just get into that, really. Words really can't describe how interesting this collection is, mainly just based on a lot of the designers they chose, and in all honesty, it ranges everywhere from low-end streetwear to a little bit preppy, all the way up to stuff that you'd expect from Moncler, and even well surpassing that to things that I would even consider Moncler trying their hands at haute couture. I mean, you have the really, really avant-garde stuff from people like Pier Paolo Piccioli and Craig Green. Then you would have the, although on the crazier end, more elegant pieces from things like, or people like Simone Roca and the Noir collaboration. Then you have the more maximalized and still very interesting pieces and still very wearable pieces in their 1952 collection and their Grenoble collection. And lastly, and even though it's by far the most boring collaborations between Palm Angelus and Fragment Design, they're still very wearable, they're still highly viable, whether it be for warm weather wear, or cold weather wear, excuse me, or streetwear. And in all honesty, as much shit as I've been giving to Fragment Design recently, at least it looks like Hiroshi actually tried with designing some of this collection, so at least props to him on that. Overall, me just talking about it here and the few photos I did put up really, really can't describe how absolutely insane and amazing this collection is. Definitely check the link in the description, go over a lot of these pieces. Very, very inspirational stuff, and I can't help but just applaud Moncler on this. This was absolutely fantastic. They absolutely killed it. Alright, and with that, let's move on to our art stories for the day. And first up, and honestly something that everybody should really be excited about, new images just surfaced online of Takashi Murakami's new exhibit in Vancouver, The Octopus Eats Its Own Leg, and as you'd expect, absolutely amazing. I linked a couple different sites in the description because they each have a little bit more imagery, but if you're a fan of Murakami, definitely check it out, and if you happen to be in Vancouver anytime soon, I would definitely take some time out to see this. Then it was announced that Erik Parker is going to be having a new exhibit at the Mary Boone Gallery in New York starting next week. So if you're a fan of very trippy, very surrealist, very vibrant poppy art, I would definitely look into this. And if you have the chance to go see the exhibit sometime starting literally next week, the beginning of March, I would definitely go check this out. And lastly, famed American artist Jasper Johns just sat down with the New York Times for a quick little interview. And even if you're not a fan of that, he does have an exhibit that is currently running in Los Angeles now till about mid-May. So if you are interested in any of his art, I would definitely go see that if you happen to be in the area anytime soon. Alright, and then moving on into fashion, Tobias Birk Nielsen just released his Fall/Winter 2018 lookbook, and I'd have to say it's pretty good overall. For what this lookbook lacks in color, it definitely makes up in literally everything else. The technical wear is very great. The textures and choice of materials on a lot of these pieces is very fantastic as well. The layering is absolutely amazing. Sure, there are a couple pieces here and there, a little bit more on the minimal side, that are a little bit boring, a little bit just unenthusiastic in my opinion. But if you do find yourself a fan of tech wear, very intricate layering, very intricate designs, patterns, and textures, I would definitely check this out. Then Diamond Supply showed off their newest collaboration, this time with legendary musician Johnny Cash, and it's alright to say the least. As someone who has never been a fan of, and will never be a fan of, Diamond Supply Co., I do have to at least give them props here for at least doing a decent job on some of the collaborations. Sure, there are a couple pieces that are just absolute complete garbage, but overlooking those, I mean, in all honesty, compared to a lot of other brands nowadays that are doing very similar collaborations, aside from those, this collaboration actually looks pretty well done in comparison. So yeah, if you consider yourself a Johnny Cash fan and are willing to rock a piece of Diamond Supply Co., then this will probably be right up your alley. And speaking of musician collaborations, Takahiro Miyashita just showed off his Nirvana collaboration, and personally, I really like this one as well. I like the graphics, I like the text, I do think the clout sunglasses are a very nice touch as well, seeing as how well Cobain was known for wearing them. The only real downside I have to this collection is that, once again, it is the Soloist, so for a couple pairs of sunglasses and a couple graphic t-shirts, you're going to be literally paying out the nose. But if that's worth it to you, then I don't see why you wouldn't pick this up as well. Then Maharishi came through with their Spring-Summer 2018 lookbook, and overall I enjoyed it. If you've ever followed Maharishi for literally any length of time, be it one season or 20, you'll know they have a very specific design style in mind, and as per usual that shows through here, but that is by no means a bad thing. There are some very interesting design choices here. I do very much enjoy the poncho, even though I don't see a lot of people wearing it. Their normal graphics come through, their normal embroideries come through, and they even have some Sachiko-esque kind of design techniques and aesthetics in there as well, which I found really pleasing. Overall, if you've been a fan of the brand, or if you're a fan of just military-inspired vintage wear, I would definitely check this out. Then Thisisneverthat showed off their Spring-Summer 2018 lookbook, and I honestly really liked this one as well. Thisisneverthat is often touted as the Korean Supreme, and honestly, I perfectly agree with this title, and I don't think it's a bad thing either. I think that idea of them being the Korean Supreme actually is more of a pro than the con, and let me explain. First off, they always have a wide variety of different styles for pretty much any type of streetwear you like, whether it be very dark and minimalistic or very loud and maximalized, and it really just envelops that spectrum very well. On top of that, it's fairly easy to get if you know how to get it. It doesn't have the markup that Supreme has, so the prices are still fairly cheap even with import costs. And honestly, if you're just a fan of just creative, but not over the top, not overly pretentious, just very light-hearted streetwear without the comedy aspect of it, then you'll definitely enjoy this, and I would definitely check it out, especially if you've never heard of the brand before. And lastly, Neighborhood and Adidas came together once again for another collaboration, and honestly, I think they did a fantastic job with it. Really, everything about this collection rings true to me. The graphics are very nice, they're very well placed, they're not too loud, they're not too all over the place. The designs themselves are very nice, very well composed, and the pinnacle points such as the parka-esque jackets and the rider jackets, which Neighborhood and Adidas have done before in the past, and I always really just enjoy that use of a motorcycle jacket, mixed with something that isn't leather. Last time they did wool, I believe, and this time using more of a cotton twill. Very interesting take on the style, and if you really enjoy Japanese streetwear, I would definitely pick this up. Alright, and let's move on to our articles for the day. And first up, Highsnobiety put a very interesting article out on how and why Gore Tex has become so commonplace among pretty much every part of fashion streetwear and the sneaker game as well. And it goes into a really in-depth history of why and how that started in the first place, and a little bit more on Gore Tex. So if you are a fan of tech wear or history of fashion, I would definitely give this article a read. Then Complex put out a very nice and very in-depth mini documentary on how hip-hop has had such a huge impact on Polo Ralph Lauren over the years, especially in previous decades. So if you are a fan of hip-hop and history of hip-hop and how that ties in with music and fashion in general, I would definitely give this a watch. Then Grailed put out a very nice article on a little bit of the history of Giorgio Armani and how he became popular and his rise in fashion in menswear in the 70s, early 80s, that era, and how it's come to basically change the landscape until what it has become today. So once again, history of fashion, especially more classic menswear this time, definitely worth a read. And lastly, Grail put out a very intricate and nice article on Junya Watanabe of his own label's fame and of Comme des Garçons fame. And whether or not you're a fan of his style, just for how influential as he has been over the course of the last couple of decades, I do think that this is definitely worth a read, especially if you're into the history of fashion and more specifically workwear and Japanese fashion in general. Alright guys, and with that we've reached the end of our second whiff of the week. As always, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and also as always, any of the articles I've talked about today I've linked down in the description if you want to read a little bit more in depth or look at a little more pictures, which on some of these I highly recommend that you do. And as I stated earlier in the beginning of the video, yes, I have really kind of fallen behind due to basically a multitude of reasons on putting out these whiffs more commonly. So at least for the next couple weeks, expect at least 3 whiffs a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And also, I have been putting out now the New York Fashion Week reviews as well, which I will also link in the description below. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you'll be seeing that on days that I don't have whiffs, and you'll probably be seeing them up until probably early next week. Alright guys, and with that, thank you as always for watching the video and supporting our content. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to just talk about fashion in general, please feel free to hit me up in the comments down below. I'm always willing to talk fashion. And I hope you guys have a good day, and as always, until next time.